Hi everybody. Just figured since I'm here I'll check in. We are going to make the bow tie beaded beads today. We'll give people a few minutes to tune in. Jose, hello. Paula, hi there. Can't quite see all the people tuning in on my chat, but welcome everybody. I have to tell you, I really had fun with these. So I hope that you will too. There's a lot of other projects coming your way that use these bow tie beads, which have 3 holes. But if you've been following me, you know that I love beaded beads and components, as does my partner in crime, Leslie Pope, who is tuned in to help me stay on top of things while this goes on. So I will say that although I sometimes will make beaded beads around wooden beads inside, these are self-supporting, which are really nice. And the thing that you have to remember is making the opening to the size of what you're going to string your beaded beads on. Shalom, Israel. I see somebody posting in Hebrew. Julie, nice to see you. Anyway, the thing to remember with making beaded beads is that you want the opening to be suitable for what you're going to use as your stringing material. So part of the way I designed this was to bring in the opening to be small enough so that the beads, when they're strung on a wire or a cord, because these are pretty small, are not going to wiggle around or hang unevenly. But if you wanted to, when you make this bead, you'll see at one stage you have an opening only this big before you close it up. And this would be good if you're doing some kind of tubular rope or using another cord so you can have this opening big. And that might have been jumping the gun a little bit, but I think I can officially now say, welcome to June 1st Facebook Live, woohoo! Today's project features bow tie beads. You'll also have a few size 6 beads, size 8 beads, size 11 beads, and my 15s, which I just slammed all the way over. So it's primarily seed beads, and then the bow tie beads are really featured. I only had to make 4 of these and use them in my bracelet for the with the partially finished bracelet end. So this is just strung and crimped on a wire like you would normally when you're doing bead stringing with flexible beading wire, flex right. And you can see I put the little wire guards on and jump rings. I didn't add dangles yet, but in case you're new to the partially finished bracelet ends, these are so cool because they are adjustable with this nice little slider. So it fits anybody for gifts or for sale. Slides in. Goes from wristbone to wristbone, so there's plenty of room for adjustability. So this is just the one finished one that I did before I get started to show you how I made these. And my husband thinks they look like little Fabergé eggs. I think that's because I made them glitzy. But I agree, because it has the little windows with the pearls showing. That's kind of Fabergé-ish, right? And I did all kinds of different colors. You can play around with colors. It's very fun. So I'm going to show you now how easy it is to make these. I'm going to start from the beginning. You need 4 bow tie beads. Let's get these out of the way. It's a little warm in my studio, so I am going to be sticking to my beads. Just saying. Leslie's nodding. So you're going to have 4 bow tie beads. Make sure, like you do with any other 2-hold or multi-hold beads, that you check all the holes before you use them. Usually you can just hold them up, and if you can see your bead mat through the holes, you're good to go. Check them for flaws or mutations. Sometimes, you know, these are just glass, so sometimes there's little flubs, and you want to set those aside and make sure the beads you use are well chosen. And we're going to use our 6s. You start with about 1.25 yards of 6-pound fire line, and because we're using 15s, you're also going to use a size 12 needle, because that will easily go through the 15s as well as the other larger beads. And I also have my thread zap here. I also have a scissors in case I want to do some trimming. Here's my needle case, size 12. Okay, so let's get started. We're going to string our first 4 beads to the middle of the thread, and we're going to work from one side to the other side. Here's a partially finished one. So I have this stepped out, and you can see I worked the middle, and I'm going to finish up the end for you in a little bit. And then you're going to use the other thread, the other half of the thread, to finish it up. So that way you're not ending up sewing through your whole bead in order to get from one side to the other. So that's a little tip you might want to consider as you're designing. All right, so through the middle hole, we're going to do a bow tie and a 6, and you're going to string them all 4. Bow tie and 6. Right through the middle. I don't know if you guys can hear the birds in my backyard, but they are raucous. All right, I'm going to find the other end of my thread and pull my beads to the middle. And then I'm just going to tie a square knot to hold them into the ring. Like this. Make sure you don't catch anything. Now these can be floppy, so what I did was I took a little Post-it note or a scrap of paper and I rolled myself a tube. If you've done other things working around, you know that sometimes this helps, and by using a piece of paper, it'll expand to the right size. You don't have to worry about having a dowel rod that's like exactly the size. Okay, so my working thread, the 2 threads are actually coming from the knot. Another good rule of thumb is you don't ever want to like continue your stitching working right from the knot. You want to sew through some beads and come out through a bead as the tutorial will instruct you where you're going to start your stitching. So for this project and this step, you're going to want to be exiting a size 6. So even though there's a 6 right here next to my knot, I'm going to go through into the next size 6 just to make sure so that my knot doesn't get pulled and I end up working away from the knot, which I don't want to do. So I have this here. The next stage of this, here's the finished bead. So what we're going to work on now is the upper part of the outline, and I'm going to pick up, you always want to have an 11 next to your 6 on either side of the 6. So I'm picking up 1 11 and 3 15s. And you can see my thread coming out of that side of the 6. So I'm going to go and sew through the bow tie next to that, adjacent that, working around. And I'm going to go through the top hole, the outer hole. So I have one little part of my outline. Now I'm going to pick up in reverse the 3 15s. And an 11. I'm working around, I'm going to go through the next 6. Whoops, it looks like I only got 2 on there. Let me fix that. 3 15s. And an 11. And I'm going through the next 6. Now I'm going to pick up an 11 and 3 15s. And we're going to do this all the way around. coming out of the 6, we want to go through the top hole of the bow tie. So you can see how we're going to work all the way around, and I'm going to do this all the way around. 3/15s, put some up there so I don't keep pulling myself off frame. Now take a look here. You can see that my little aqua bead got caught. You really want to make sure when you're pulling these that the 11s are sitting next to the 6. And we're going to go around and pick up 3/15s and an 11 and go through the next 6. 11's next to the 6, so we're going to pick up an 11 first. And then the 3/15s. And it's nice and easy. Go through the top of the next one around. You can see it's kind of squishy, so having a tube in the middle of paper really, it's very helpful. All right, we're almost around. 3/15s. And even the 15s you kind of need to check out for uniformity, because sometimes they're a little thinner than other beads, and it does make a difference. Even though they're really small, it can throw the spacing off, so you might not have as elegant looking a piece if you have too much space or not enough space. An 11 3/15s. Get over there. And go through the top hole. Watch your extra thread there so you can see where that is. And we're going to finish up with 3/15s and an 11. And then we are going to go through the 6. And it's time to work our way up to start to close up this side. To do that, coming out of the 6, you're going to sew up the first 11 and 15s that we added to work the outline. And you don't have to do it all in one pass with your needle. You want to be careful and not to skip any beads. Okay, now we're going to add 11s in the corners here between each of the 4 bow ties to start to bring this together. So we've come up out of the 15, you're going to sew through the bow tie again, the top hole, and you're going to add 11s in between each of the bow ties, just going from top hole to top hole. Don't sew through the 15s. So you can see I'm going through the top hole, and that little galvanized rose bead's going to sit right there, and we're going to do that all the way around. And it's going to help to hold our tubular shape together. You see how I'm holding it with my fingers like a prong? That's a good way to hold it, especially if there's a tube or a dowel rod in there. Don't go through your 15s, push them out of the way. And make sure your thread doesn't get caught. So you're going to pull that in. One more. Skip the 15s. Go through the last bow tie and the first 11 that you added. So now we have, and you're going to pull that tight. Go around again. I'm going to do this pretty fast to secure it and hold it nice and snug. There's plenty of thread in the 1/4 that I told you about. Hi everybody. I hear people beeping in. Any questions yet, Les? I can see you on our chat. No? Okay. So I'm going to go through, and you want to go all the way around and exit one of the 11s that you just added. Now we're going to square stitch a size 8 onto each of the 11s and work our way around. So I'm going to pick up an 8. I have these lovely purple AB. Coming out of the 11, I'm coming out this way. I've picked up an 8 and I'm going to go through the 11 in the same direction, like this. So you can see how that is standing up right there. So through the next bow tie and the next 11, and I think I can take the tube out now. And we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to pick up a nice purple, square stitch it to the 11, and sew through the bow tie and the next 11. So you will have 4 size 8s so far at the corners. Square stitch, ladder stitch, I don't know, what would you call this? I call it a square stitch. Just going around. Again, check your beads. Call your beads so that you have nice, uniform, even, consistent sizes. So my last, the 4th size 8 that I'm adding. So I'm sewing through the bow tie, and I'm going to sew through that first 11 where I added the 8, and now I'm going to reverse direction and I'm going to come back through the 8. Make sure your 8s aren't twisted. They should be completely parallel to the 11s, so the holes are in the same side. Now we're going to add beads in between to start to draw this opening in closer. So I figured out that I can do a 15, an 8, and a 15, and it fits really nicely in here, and we'll start to pull that aperture together. So 15, 8, 15. And as I'm exiting this, I'm just going to sew right through. You see how that pulled together? Right through the 8 in the corner. I'm going to do that all the way around. 15, 8, 15. Make sure that this is not twisted. And go through the 8. And you can see that starting to pull in. So I'm going to pick up my pace here. 15, 8, 15, go through the next 8, and 15, 8, 15, and we're going to finish our round, and you will, when you're doing yours, sew through that whole ring again to make sure that it's snug and firm. Okay, there we go. So now we have this. Sew through it again, as I told you, and come up, and again you're going to be at that corner where you have the rose 11 and the purple 8. Now we're going to do a square stitch 11 at each corner, just like we did with the purple. So I'm going to pick up a rose, and I'm going to sew all the way through the 8, square stitch it to the 8, so through the 15, 8, and 15, and exit the 8 at the other corner. So here we go. And we're going to do it again. 4 times around, square stitching an 8, and sewing through the existing 15, 8, and 15. So you can see on the corner you've got the 11, the 8, and the 11 stacked like this. All right. Next corner, square stitch the 8, so through the 15, 8, 15, and the next corner 8, and square stitch your next 11. This will be my last one. And we're going to sew all the way through. And sew through the first 8 that you exited to attach this 11, and now we're going to reverse direction and sew through the 11. Now we want this opening to be very snug. You can see how the beads really will come together. All I need is a 15 in between each of those pink 11s. And we're going to pull that opening nice and closed. There we go. A 15, sew through the 11, 15, sew through the 11. See how that's pulling in? Sweet. Okay. And you know how many colors there are. I mean, just tons of variations. So you're going to sew through, and now you have your snug aperture. That's going to enclose your wire or your thread or your cord. So you want to sew through that inner ring around and around at least 2 or 3 times. You should be able to fit it through. Be careful as you're sewing through the 15s. When it really starts to get snug, you want to be finished. You've sewn through that enough times. You don't want to risk breaking a bead. So you're going to go through that, and you can weave the ending of this thread through existing thread paths, just a couple places. Believe me, the friction in the thread that's in there is going to be nice and sturdy. So you have that nice little opening. That's the finished top, you guys. And I'm just going to bring my thread zap down very carefully. Bum. There. All right. Now we have this on the other side. The other thread, you're going to string a needle on it, and you're going to repeat exactly what you did as you did the outline. So you're going to make sure that you have 11s near the 6s and the 15s climbing up the side, and then you're going to close it up just like we did the first one, and you're going to end up with your beaded bead. Now here's a little extra step. Sometimes, and by the way, that's it. The bead essentially is done, but I've added another step in the tutorial so that you can line up. Where's my needle? Here it is. So sometimes these 11s don't stay straight. The 2 that are paired up on either side of your 6. You can see they might fall into that little gap. You can kind of squish them around. But what you're going to do is you're going to have the remainder of your thread, and I just pulled my needle off. And we're going to go back and work around once to straighten those lines out. So when you're finished, you're going to work your way back down to be coming out of the ring through one of the corner 11s. Doesn't matter which one, wherever you're close. But it's going to be that one right there. And you're going to make sure your thread is exiting there. Then all we do is from the 11 up here, we're going to sew through the 15s, the 2 11s, the 15s all the way around through the 2 11s, back up through the 15s, and through the bow tie and the next 11, and you're just going to make these loops around and around. So let's do that so I can show you. Very easy, and then you weave your thread in. So by sewing back through the 15s and the 2 11s, you're going to really, they're going to behave for you. So you're going to do it this way. And you see how those 11s are pulled nice and straight now? Now you're going to go, whoops, you're going to come out the 15, you're going to sew through the 11, sew up through the 15s and the 11s. I forgot to tell you to sew through that tip 11 on the bottom. Here you go. Look how nice that lines them up. And you're going to do that all the way around. All right. Then you're going to keep moving around. You're going to sew through that first 11 again. Go through the bow tie. Here's the first 11. Through the bow tie. Through the next 11. And you're going to go all the way down and around and up through the top, back through the 11, and around, and it's going to line up those little beads. Now you get to play. You can string them on wire. You can make a bracelet, a necklace. Other beaded beads go great with these. I think this would be really cute as little earrings, hanging as dangles. You know, beaded beads. Holy cow, they're the best. Ta-da! Bow ties. Bow tie beaded beads. Fun, fun, fun. Let me say, remember, you can get bow tie beads and the partially finished bracelet ends and the seed beads from your favorite bead reseller, along with other quality tools and supplies from the Beadsmith. The free pattern, I believe there's a PDF link listed in the chat window. Is that right, Leslie? I can see that. Okay, so you can link on it there. It's already in our I Love Beads section, thanks to Charlotte. Thank you very much. So you can go there and look for that and other free. They're all free. Our I Love Beads patterns are all free. I guess that's it. It's June 1st, you guys. Where does time fly? I hope you're doing a lot of beading, enjoying your summer, getting beads stuck to your fingers because it's hot here in Philadelphia. And with that, we'll say thanks for joining me, Leslie Rogalski and Leslie Pope. We're Team Leslie. Look for our Beadsmith_Team Leslie Instagram page. Now we're going to be posting a lot of stuff there. We love you. We love beads. Stay safe. Wear your sunscreen.